The Leigh F3 finger joint template is designed to be a direct replacement for the guide fingers and bar on the Leigh D-Series dovetail jigs. To convert the jig, all you do is remove the dovetail finger assembly and slide on the Leigh finger joint template in its place. There are no further changes needed to the jig body itself. When you want to go back to making dovetails again, you just remove the F3 finger joint template and reinstall the guide fingers for the dovetails. That's all there is to it. From the easy to understand scale blocks at either end to the guide comb itself that's all precisely CNC machined, this is a first-rate jig throughout. The very trick offset system is very easy to use but very well thought out. The critical finger joint offset is controlled by this pin. You simply pull it out, move the template to the next hole for that size, and replace the pin. The first time setup of the F3 jig involves putting the scale blocks on either end loosely. And then we slip that assembly onto the original support arms. Then we set the scale blocks on either end to the same number and tighten their set screw. That leaves the guide comb template and its support bar free between the scale blocks. The F3 user guide shows how to make this simple setup stick that's clamped in place against the stops on the jig body. Then we insert the alignment pin through the center hole on the template into the center hole on the support bar within it. Move the template so that it's in contact with the alignment stick. And then we tighten the set screws in each of the scale blocks to lock the assembly in place, and the jig is perfectly aligned. The ability to adjust the joint fit comes from the E-bush system that Leigh developed. The guide collar on the E-bush is oblong rather than round, so turning it adjusts the fit between it and the fingers on the template. To better illustrate the oblong shape, watch the numbers change as I turn this E-bush within the calipers. Each E-bush has this number scale on it to quantify how much of a change you're making. It even shows which way to turn it to make the joint tighter or looser. After choosing and installing the right bit and guide collar for the size joint you want to make comes the easy part, actually cutting the joint. As with any joint, you start with scrap pieces to make sure you have the fit you want. And note that I'm using my vacuum and router support system, and it works just as well with the finger joint template as it does with the dovetail set. Now we move the guide pin to its second location to create the offset between the finger joints. This offset system is very easy to use and eliminates having to insert a shim or even use a different template for the second cut. Now we install the board for the second part of the joint, put it against the side stops, and make the cut exactly as we did with the first one. Because the template itself was moved over to create the offset, we make the cut exactly the same and the offset is built in. This is actually the second finger joint that I cut with the F3 template. After the first one, I adjusted the E-bush to tighten the joint up just a little bit. And this time, as I assemble it, we see that the joint is tighter. There's no sanding or fitting done to this, it's right off the jig. We add a coat of glue to this, and this will be a good tight joint. Have you ever even heard of half-blind finger joints? You can make them easily with the Leigh F3 finger joint template. The user guide tells you how to use the same scale blocks to set up for cutting half-blind finger joints. The actual cuts are made almost exactly as they are with the simple finger joint. And after the first cut, we have a set of nicely formed half-blind fingers. And just like we did with the regular finger joints, we move the indexing pin to create the offset. Instead of measuring, we use the fingers we just cut to position the template to get the correct depth on our second cut. Now we cut the socket part of the joint, and if we did everything as the user guide said, we should get a decent fitting joint. And you thought I was pulling your leg. Here we got a nice clean half-blind finger joint. The F3 finger joint template works so easily, it just doesn't make sense to have a Leigh dovetail jig and not use this template to cut finger joints.